So, how close is Iran from building a bomb? Jamil Jaffer joins us, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute. So, Jamil, is this a false boast, a real threat, or is it a pointed reminder that if it wants, Iran could build a nuclear weapon?
Well, I think it's a little bit of all those things, Eric, which we know for a fact that Iran for a while has had the ability to build a nuclear weapon if, in fact, it chose to do so. What it was short on was a couple of things. Number one, enough enriched uranium. Now, they've gotten close to producing that. And the advisor, the Ayatollah, was making clear, as Trey said, that they can rapidly accelerate to nuclear weapons capable of uranium. The question we have now is, do they have a valid warhead design? And can they deliver a weapon, one or more on the top of ballistic missiles? And so these are still open questions. And what's clear is they haven't made the decision to move forward. So now the question becomes, what can we do to stave off that day from coming any sooner than it has to?
Well, the Biden administration says the answer is there any nuclear deal.
Well, Eric, we've seen this nuclear deal before, right? The Obama administration put it in place. It clearly had its deep flaws, as we know, as our allies, the Israelis and Saudis, told us ahead of time. President Trump backed out of it. He put maximum pressure on the Iranians. We saw activities happen in Iran against the nuclear program. Now, the challenge is the Biden administration has made clear they want the nuclear deal back, and they're willing to make concessions. The Iranians see this. They see a division amongst the Israeli government about whether the Israeli government wants a nuclear deal or not. And so they're exploiting these disagreements amongst the American body politic and the Israelis to ultimately get more concessions, as they did in that first nuclear deal, causing it to have problems.
One of the major issues in the deal, one of the reasons critics slammed it as being ineffective, is the lack of any type of sunset clause. In other words, once it lapsed, in a few years, Iran would get a free pathway to build a nuclear bomb if it wanted, and nuclear weapons. Is that still in it, and is that still a point of contention? Because many critics say, without some type of with a sunset clause in it, it doesn't really mean anything. That Iran will be free to build a nuclear bomb when it wants once the deal lapses.
That's exactly right, Eric. The challenge is that we're already a long way into that sunset clause, almost near the end of the deal. We've already seen the expiration of the conventional weapons ban at the UN on Iran, and there are increasingly more capabilities that Iran gains over the next few years as they continue to play this thing out. So the real problem is the deal is getting weaker day by day as we get closer to these sunset provisions, and that's the fundamental issue. So what we need is a longer deal, ideally a deal that goes on forever, that says Iran will never make a nuclear weapon. But on top of that, we need real checks and balances, none of which were in the original deal. And we need Iran's commitment that it won't continue its bad behavior in the region, which, it's support for Hezbollah, it's support for Hamas, it's support for the groups in Yemen. Iran is causing all sorts of trouble around the region. They refuse to bring in any of that. And then finally, its ballistic missiles program, which is how it's going to deliver this nuclear capability. We don't rein that in. That's a huge problem in and of itself, Eric. And these are still huge flaws that the Biden administration hasn't yet worked out with Iran. And in fact, Iran sees an opportunity to get better on these deals, not worse, because they see the dispute happening in the U.S. and in Israel.
Isn't Tehran hoodwinking the Biden administration? I mean, look, you just laid out a list of their supporting terrorism around the world, their hatred for America and what they've been doing. They're not going to change their behavior. And the whole goal, many say, is to build a nuclear bomb eventually. Just wait us out.
That's exactly what the problem is, Eric. That's why we keep trying to deal with these folks who we know don't uphold their end of the deal, who we know aren't serious about, addressing any of these problems in their regional ambitions. What we need to do is make clear to Iran, we're going to put so much pressure on you that you're going to have an option but to come to the table and make a real deal. The Obama administration didn't do that. They wanted the deal more than Iran did. And the problem is the Biden administration has been signaling the exact same thing. We want this deal more than you. That means they know they have us over a barrel. That's no way to negotiate. It's negotiation 101, and the Biden administration hasn't done it right.
And Israel standing by its own survival, it says, on the line because of this. Jamil Jaffer, thank you for your insight. Of course, we'll get back to you on this very important issue in the